If you want to extend a method, overload a method, we define it in the same we define it in the same class and provide some extra parameters with default values. So now I want to achieve this using method overriding. So to basically override a method, I'll have to create a new class because I cannot override a method inside the same class. So I'll for a shape, let's say I don't have anything. I'll remove this from here. I'll also remove the parameters. I'll let the parameters stay there. Uh, or maybe I can let's try this first. Like I'll just return. Um, I'll give you the area of shape. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll extend this shape class with another class called, let's say, circle, and inside this circle I'll I'll have to obviously write init class, init method. Mm, it defines a dot shape, a circle, and then I'll override this area method here and pass it a. I'll pass the other two default variables, other two parameters with default values. But in this case, I'll without checking anything, I'll just return pi r square because we know that this is an instance of a circuit class. We don't have to check that whether the parameter is single or not. But so because we'll have to implement it for triangle also, I mean rectangle also. Let's try to create a rectangle class that extends the shape class, and my set self dot shape is rectangle. So here for area I'll give C as none. So in case of rectangle I return A into B, and now instead of calling shape dot area, just give me.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Uh, disturbance. So instead of instantiate,
In last the area method you forgot to write self.
so
Mm. Mm.
now we'll instantiate the circle class and call circle area, and also create a rectangle class and call rectangle.
Circle spelling.
Maybe there was a typo.
Okay.
So, with the default values, we got this output. But let's try to remove the default values because we're not using them anymore. And then check again. Now, so what happened here is we have a area implemented here. Instead of writing this, because we won't be using this anyway, you can also just say pass
Mm.
here, and then um,
Oh,
pass nothing apart from self here. So basically, just make it an abstract method. So
okay.
once we define the method in the base class, we
Mm.
override the method in the subclasses. So now what I can do is, let's say I don't know whether you have implemented how you have implemented the area of a circle. You can say it by R square, or I mean the client, let's say, is going to implement the area of circle, and he is going to
Mm.
use 3.14, let's say, instead
One.
of 5. So the result, let's say, varies by a very small amount. It is 12.56 here instead of the whole value, because we are
Okay.
using just limiting it to two decimal points.
Mm.
So this shape class doesn't know whether uh, the client or whoever has implemented a circle class has used pi or 3.14. So let's say in some
Mm.
other file, in some other Python code, I'm using this area. I've defined is equal to shape,
Mm.
and I'm defining like um, of- from the shape. I have used area in another calculation. Let's say store. I have so in, let's say, in volume, I have another function called volume,
Mm.
and inside this volume, I'm using self dot area into height. I'm using something like this. I'm just giving you an example here. So what I'm trying to basically say is that here you don't know what is how the implementation of area is done in any class.
Right.
So any subclass can be casted to a superclass. So if you want to
Okay.
use the methods of a superclass, you can either just don't define them, leave them undefined, or you can cast them to a superclass. Let's say I have circle here. If I use something like this, and so this circle is going to be converted into a shape object now, and
Mm.
whatever methods you have in shape object, you can call it from the circle, I mean this converted object, and the definitions inside the shape object will be activated now. So here my point is that area, because it did not know how the client has implemented, but still you are
Mm.
using it in the base class, you will like you need to know that area is going to return a number, right?
Yes.
But if it doesn't return a number and it returns a string, let's say, there will be some
Mm.
error that will be so. Um, so for these abstract classes are used because to put some restrictions on the implementation of client, client classes, I mean
Mm.
subclasses, so that the base class already knows that this is going to I'm going to get some value from area. So whenever
Okay.
the logic is implemented for area in a base class, it is used here. The same logic is going to be used here. So another example for this is on-click listener in an Android phone, Android framework. So what happens to an on-click listener? So listeners basically are like hooks for different events. Whenever we click on a button in Android, a code is going to run based on like what you want the button to do. Let's say you want to call a number on a Android phone, you press the call button, and
Mm.
you have implemented it in your own app. You have created your own app where you created a button, and when you click on that button, it is going to call some number. Let's say an emergency number.
Okay.
So, how does how are you going to tell the framework that whenever I click on this button, I want to call? Because button has this has a method that has an abstract method that was implemented when the Android framework was written, and it is called on-click
Mm.
listener. Whenever you call out,
Okay.
whenever you override on-click method inside your own logic in your own file, the Android framework is going to call this abstract method, but on your button that you created. That means the new object that you have created. So when the
Okay.
framework calls the method on the new object that you created, the logic inside your
Mhm.
newly implemented method is going to be executed. So
Okay.
the how did we take advantage of the abstract class here? Is that even though we did not know what the logic we had to run once the button was clicked, we had given it a
Mm.
name. We had given just a name and has left the implementation, so that when the
Mm.
client has implemented something, we have called that name, and we were
Okay.
able to run the logic whatever the client has written.
Mhm.
Okay, that is main,
Okay.
one of the advantages of creating abstract classes, and this is how you, extend or override the methods in Python.
If we have a method in main class and we use it in subclass,
Yeah.
then it is called overriding, right?
Yes. Well, so here what we
Override.
fill in.
Your voice is breaking.
Yeah. Here we essentially have overriding method. So
Okay. And if we have same method, I mean, if we have one method and passing multiple arguments for that and using it in multiple classes, then it is overloading.
you may not. It is not essential to use it in multiple classes. Overloading is basically inside a single class, but overriding is across classes. So you can overload only.
Sorry, like main class, we'll have a method which has suppose three arguments.
Yeah.
We can use it in other classes also, but we can pass one argument or two arguments. I mean, it's basically using the same method.
Yeah. Once you are using it in another class, it is going. It is essentially overriding because
Overriding. Okay.
yeah, but only when
Yeah. Then
overloading
overloading is
only inside a single method, single class.
only inside a single class, but passing different arguments.
Yeah, exactly. So we
Like we have A, B, C. We can give it all as none.
yeah,
And if we pass one argument, and if we say A is not none, then run this. Like yesterday, we had one example. So
exactly.
that is called overloading.
Yeah,
And if we have one method in one class, and if we use it in any subclasses, then it is overriding.
yes, exactly. Because if
Okay.
you
And
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So when it comes to overriding, right? So as the name itself suggests, You are basically cleaning up whatever you already wrote in somewhere, and you are writing something else.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
to write something else, you need to be in some other class. You cannot wipe out what you written in the same class. So
Yeah.
you need to subclass it and then write something so that it clears whatever you have essentially written and then writes on top of it. Whereas
Okay.
if you see overloading, you are loading something with more of let's say responsibilities. So
Okay.
you can overload something. I mean, which is already loaded, right? That you can essentially load a single lorry if you're um, putting multiple more people in it. You cannot take another lorry
Mm-hmm.
and then like send some more people there and then say that this lorry is overloaded, right? So
Yeah.
so what I'm trying to say is essentially if you're overloading method, it should be a single method in a single class. And if you're
Okay.
overriding it, it has to be in some other class.
Okay.
Okay, so
And here in the main class shape, you define this self define init, right, method,
yeah,
and their self dot shape. Uh, what is the shape? Because
see,
shape is a class name, and here you are using self dot shape.
yeah. So
Yeah.
this is the same thing that I was talking yesterday about scopes, right? So
Yeah.
self, whatever you write as self dot is going to be a class variable.
It in the class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this shape is a even though the name is same because I can even define capital S so that it is totally same as the class name, but still it is going to be variable inside the class. It is it cannot
So it is just like a print statement. That's it, right? Because self doesn't have anything here.
self is the object itself.
We right. We are not passing any arguments or anything, because when we pass any argument, like suppose like here h you passed, right, in
Hmm.
volume.
Yeah.
So there we'll say self dot h equal to h.
No. See, self.
No, in general, in
No. Let me make it clear.
for
H is a parameter, so it is going to
right,
live only till the scope of this volume method. Once we are
right,
out of volume method, it is dead. It does not have any identity.
right, right. Yeah,
So self is something that has the visibility within the scope, the class scope.
within this class. Yeah, within
Okay.
this class.
So here, what I wrote is a variable. Like we discussed yesterday, every object has some parameters and some behavior, right? So behavior is
Yeah.
nothing but the methods that we write inside this class, and parameter is nothing but the visible, features of the object. So these are all just variables. These are not methods, and in variables you can store anything. Like let's say if I say self dot um, n is zero, so this n is going to be
Okay, you're creating some variables with the TSCN names right
yeah,
here.
yes.
Okay,
SN is a
okay.
variable or parameter?
These are class variables. So whereas h
Class variable.
is going to be a parameter.
Parameter. Yeah, argument which is passed.
Yeah, parameter and argument
You
are both
just
interchangeable words. You can uh,
Uh, they
basically
are different? Same.
they are same. You can use them interchangeably.
Okay.
the volume you have mentioned area. What is this self dot area? And that
This
okay, this is a method, right?
yeah, the
Okay,
method that we defined here.
and you are doing into with h
Yeah,
value of a parameter value of h, but nothing you have passed anything, right? There is no value for h, no value
So
for
even
self.
there it should be self dot h, right?
no, that is because h is something that is passed from outside. Like
Comes
let's say here I want to calculate the volume. I'll say s dot volume of
Mm-hmm.
10. So what
10,
happens now?
right.
Before I can
10
call
will come.
volume, area should have something, right? So area, let's say I pass 1 comma 1, and here, because I'm passing some variables here, I should have some variables here as well. And then instead of
Mm-hmm.
uh, pass, I'll have to return
Return API.
a into b. Now what happens whenever I call volume? It calls area with one length 1 and breadth 1. It gets the area of a 1 by 1 rectangle square, that will be 1, and it multiplies with the height whatever I pass. So here the volume is
Yes.
going to be 10
One.
minutes. So whatever we wrote here, right? H, A, V, these are all going to be parameters, just the parameters, and the value that they are going to get, whatever we passed here, 10, is the value that H is going to get. But this 10 is not associated with the shape class. It is not a class variable. Its scope is only till this block. So if
Okay.
you cannot write self.h, because after this volume method, h is going to be deleted. You cannot access it from anywhere else. So h is a short-lived parameter, and you don't need to, like, you cannot give self dot h here, because self is something that is associated with the shape. Okay, are you clear with the difference between parameters and class variables now?
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused with the calculator example, where we pass two numbers, right? We pass two numbers and we say that self dot num1, self dot num2,
Okay, let me open it.
and wherever we use it with self dot num1 plus self dot num2, like that.
Yeah. So what
So
we
I'm
did?
confused with that because so here,
Okay. So this is what you're talking
if
about,
we yes, right.
right?
So
Okay.
here two numbers we are passing and we are saying it as self dot a equal to num1, and whenever we are adding it, we are doing self dot a plus self dot b.
Yes.
So whichever the arguments we
Uh,
pass,
Mhm.
we first assign it with
so,
self dot a,
Yeah.
and then we use it like that only.
Yeah.
But here, a and b we are passing in area
Yeah. So that is
area
because
method, but we are using as as it is now without self.
uh, that is just
so num1 will come to A, num2 will go to B. Whatever value pass num1, it will go to A,
yeah.
and num2 will
Right.
go to B.
Yeah. Naman, we are
So,
essentially saving this these two variables that we have given it, and what
Uh,
these saved values will be able to retrieve it anytime from any other class using self dot a and self dot b. But here,
any other method.
yeah, here we are not storing these values anywhere. Once we are defining it here,
Hmm.
we are just using them there itself, and we don't say, we are not saving it anywhere. But we can implement, like,
Right.
I just gave it as an example for you. But if you the actual practice is, let's say whenever you create a shape, if you know it is a circle,
Hmm.
you know that it has to have some radius, right? So
Yes.
uh, for every circle there should be some radius. So you can save self dot r equal to radius here.
Hmm.
And whenever you call area, you don't have to pass a
Hmm.
variable and then pass.
Right. Directly we can say self dot r.
Yes. So this is just a matter of convenience, let's say, or this is how we chose to implement.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So here in this calculator function,
Yeah.
if we pass the arguments in add 2 comma 3,
Okay.
we can directly say return a plus b.
No, we cannot, because
num1 you have to pass.
yeah, we don't have. If you how will you pass 2 and 3 to add, first of all?
Self comma a comma b. You can give it like that here. Yeah, self comma a comma b.
Mhm.
And while passing here, just a plus b.
Yeah, this is totally acceptable. But whatever numbers you gain
And
during the installation of the class will be wasted.
mhm.
Like you're not using them. So
Yeah, that's we
yeah,
can give it like that, because if we use the same in here in add method, the numbers what we are passing, if we are using it only for the add function,
yeah,
then we can pass it like that, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
You
fine.
won't be able to
Fine.
access them again from difference function and multiple.
Definition function. Okay. If we give it to itself, we can give it in all the methods, whatever are there in the classes.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Because self is
Okay.
going to save them in the class scope, like until
That's it.
we
Yeah.
enter the.
And if I want to access from outside, the add method. Suppose this method overriding.
Uh-huh. You want to access what?
Yesterday class I did this add method.
Okay.
Now this is an individual method, A and B.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if I want to add from outside the class, from different class,
Then you will
in
have,
the other example.
instead of calling the add directly here, you will have to pass the two numbers to the add. So
Suppose one more class if you create in calculator method,
okay,
result,
okay,
class result,
okay.
and now if I want to what you call that method overriding, overloading.
So you can override a method inside another class.
So overriding is basically used for multiple places, like multiple classes. You can use the
Yeah,
super class.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So now if I want to add from access from here,
If
this
you
add
want,
method.
okay. Oh, you want to access it.
Yes.
You want to,
Basically, I will pass some parameter and I
okay,
want to see the output.
okay.
Defined at self. This will be considered as this method belong from result only. Class class result.
Yeah, this will be like because you are overriding it. This will be part of the result method. Let's say you are.
Okay, calculator I mentioned. So you means you're accessing the class from here. Super class from to this class.
You cannot. You are defining the method here, right? You are defining the logic here. So what you are doing is you are saying that whenever I call add method on a object of object with name result, this is what I want to get as the output. So because you
Mhm.
are saying something, I mean you are writing the logic inside add, you cannot use the logic from the add method itself uh, in the previous the super class. You are overriding it. Whatever you had here is going to be wiped out, and whatever you write here is going to be like written on top of it. So you can basically clean whatever you wrote in the superclass and then create a new logic in subclass. Is that clear?
So just create a method and the logic is written in here in this the other class.
Yes. Yeah. So you have essentially overwritten the method here. Now whatever you wrote here will not be like,
It's not be considered as.
yeah, like, it is just erased.
So but here you are passing three parameter a plus b plus 10. So a suppose again 10 b 10, then total will be 30.
30, yeah. Here I have changed the logic just for the sake that there should be some difference between this and this. If you are writing the same,
Okay.
there is
Okay.
no point of writing it again, right?
Hmm.
So if you are trying to overwrite something, there should be some changes. You want some different behavior, and that's why you are overriding it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, just to
So
demonstrate.
where you created the object for to access this. No need to do anything.
Uh,
Okay. So what I mean to say is you have defined the logic here in subclass by accessing superclass
yes.
superclass method.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to create an object to result, I mean class result or class calculator to access, I
We'll
mean to pass the parameter.
we'll have to use result itself to
Okay.
basically call this act.
Ultimate logic is here. Hmm.
So yeah, because, uh, this is similar to the example that we saw yesterday. Like we have this animal class. So we have an animal. We have this main class here, class animal, and it has this method called cry. And we have another class method, which is subclass of animal. So we have overridden the same method here with some other logic. So when I call, um, when I say when I instantiate it using an animal and I call try method on animal, it is going to print uh, what we have here. But sorry, in this method. But when I create a dog and when I call cry on the dog instance, it is going to print this instead. So we'll say that.
No, no, one second. Open it. Go up. So in animal class, you have defined two method. One
Yeah,
is cry and one is self method. What do you call the self method only, right?
this
I
instance,
mean system defined.
which one? This one.
This one
Init method.
You can call it in it.
init method. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have self print. I am generic animal plus I have what is it str.
Str is nothing but it converts a number into a string because we are adding it to a string. This is a number,
Okay,
right?
so this is a data type to convert
Yeah,
str. So self dot number of eyes. This belongs to init method. Number of eyes is two and number of
yeah. It is a class
okay.
variable. So we are using self.
The class variable
Number of ice is
and str self dot.
a,
So it will print two thing, right? Number of eyes is two and leg is four.
yeah,
Okay, and again if self dot is underscore while.
yeah.
Where is this comes from?
This is a boolean.
Okay, if it is true,
Yeah,
what is it? Boolean.
yeah. It is true or false. We can use only true or false here.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
So boolean is something which holds true or false, right? So we are using it doesn't.
Okay, to check the condition.
Yeah,
Okay, if it is true, then print I'm a wild. Else, I'm a domestic animal. I'm the animal class. Okay.
so here inside we have defined as well as true. It has printed I'm a wild animal here,
Mm-hmm.
and when we use the same method from inside the dog object, it has printed bark bark instead of
Whenever we call this dog class,
yeah,
the init function should automatically run, right?
yes. If you yeah,
Okay.
so if I call
But we are not printing anywhere that
yeah, we haven't
it's a
False, huh?
domestic animal or something. Okay.
okay, so that's how it works.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's is it clear about the overriding?
Yes. Yes.
One second. Sorry, I will take a screenshot. Can you open that one second?
Okay. can send you the files. Should I?
Okay,
Then
send.
you can take. I sent you this file already. You can still take a screenshot.
Okay, fine, fine, fine. I took a screen.
Okay.
You can close it.
Yes. Okay. So yes, yes. And, let's jump to method data hiding and encapsulation.
Your voice is very low.
Yes. Is it like that since long time or is it, are
Hello,
you, were you able
can you
to
able to hear me? Check.
yeah were you able to hear it clearly before or is it is that
It's like
No.
few
Yeah, it's very low.
yeah, few minutes. It's like in a few seconds will be very low. Then it's coming to normal.
Yeah,
okay?
And that time you say anything, we didn't get. I mean, I'm not getting anything.
Okay, while when you are not speaking right, can you mute yourself so that I guess that can be a problem if there is some
sure.
crosstalk or some interference. I'll mute.
Yeah, that's fine. Hmm.
I'll mute your microphones during while I'm speaking. Whenever you want to speak something, just unmute yourself. Okay.
Okay, sure.
So yeah, I have muted you. So I guess now the clarity is a bit good. You can ping me for any questions. So data hiding is basically one of the concepts of object-oriented programming paradigm. So whenever you create a class, you are going to create some variables inside the class, which someone from the outside is will not be able to see, which is your going to be your own data, or you want to hide the data basically others from others using it to stop others from using it. So let's say you have this method where you are trying to log in your user and you are passing a username and a password, right? So whenever you are uh, sending a password, you don't want someone else to call your method and get password out of your class, right? So for that purpose, we have something called a private variable in private variables inside our classes. And what private variable does is it makes the variable accessible only from the class and yeah, and not from outside. So let's see an example of that of how it looks. So I have a class form and inside the form we have defined authenticate self user and password. So instead of this I'm defining in it. Now I'm storing the username and password in as class variables, and then and I'm calling authenticate. So what this is the user So whenever I call authenticate, it is going to save the check the password is correct or not. Um, and does the user exist in the database or not? After performing these kinds of checks, so now let's say we have some hacker class.
Why it is slow? Why is it low?
Okay, I guess then the mics are not a good issue. It might be a network issue then. So I'll try to increase my volume then. Let's say, tell me if it is fine now.
The issue is not with the mic, I believe. That is something network related issue only.
Yes, yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'll raise my voice a bit and let me know if it is fine now. Hello, are you able to hear me?
No.
Stop screen sharing. And, okay, is it a bit better now? Hello, shall I call you on phone otherwise?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
It was asking me to call some US number. Uh,
No, no,
Okay.
I think it's fine. Your voice is fine now.
yeah, there were few glitches with my network here. Yeah, because of heavy rains, I guess I don't know. So now I'll let's resume with the session. Now I think the voice is better now. All right.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
Very much fine.
So I have defined a form here, class form, and we are passing the username and password to create the form. And after we create the form, we are using a login button like which calls authenticate, and it passes the username and password. Uses the username and password to check whether user is there or not, and then whether the password is correct or not, and then makes the user log into the system. But there is another class called hacker class. It basically create a form class. Let's say let's say we have a form here. Username and user password. So, so let's say this is we are accessing from some other class. Uh, we somehow we got hold of the form and we are calling f password from outside the form class. So,
So you create F is an object for class form,
yes, this is the object.
and you and your this is string value. This is not any parameter, right? Neither class parameter or nothing
Which one?
method.
which is
See, you are just giving information like username and super secret.
yeah. So these are username and I mean the actual username and password that you will pass into the login form when you're logging into a website. So
Mhm.
what I'm doing here is basically I should not be able to access this password from outside the class. So let's see how we can restrict that. So if I run this class here, so now we are able to access the password from outside the form class. So for that not to happen, what I'll do here is I'll use a double underscore, and if I try to if let's say I know the variable name that you're using for storing the password in your class, I can access it from outside, right? But
Mhm.
if I try to do that here, let's see what happens. See, so what it says is that form has no attribute password, double underscore password. That's because, but here I can access the password uh, using the double underscore also. This is
within the class.
yeah
Within
on
the class.
yeah, on class plus self dot double underscore password. Okay.
Yeah, attribute means what? Class has no attribute means there are error.
Yeah, the class variables are written as attributes inside the Python syntax.
Okay.
So
Class.
here I have to get now if I call f dot authenticate here,
We have to call this authenticate method, right? Somewhere.
I missed it last time.
Okay. Pass.
Okay, I forgot
Self.
to pass the self variable.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we try to access the double underscore password from outside, it will throw an error. Whereas if we try to access it from inside, it won't throw an error. So that is how you make a variable, visible only inside the class. So this mechanism of allowing only the class to access its own variables is basically hiding the data. So you're even though
But
someone else,
only uh, know the variable name, right? If you don't know the variable name, anyways,
yeah.
we
So
can't get the data.
yeah, that's what hackers are going to do, right? Basically, they'll get to know what are the variable names that you use inside your class, and then they'll just call the parameters and then get the values.
For these password related things or any, I mean,
Yeah.
critical data, we have to give underscore underscore so that even if they know the variable, they can't hack it.
Um, so that is yeah, one of the basic applications of security, data hiding,
Hmm.
and yeah. So basically, you don't want someone else to look at your data. That's the main.
Right.
And when it comes to encapsulation, right? Encapsulation is something that it is like tying up your data to something. Some All the class variables that we have are essentially
Mm-hmm.
encapsulated with the data that we passed in it method. So if we look at the calculator class again,
Mm-hmm.
if let's say we are passing the variables like this,
Mm.
you cannot use these variables again in,
Any other method.
yeah, but when you encapsulate the data, um like encapsulating is basically tying up the data to a class, right? So when you are
Mm-hmm.
using self.a, you are basically encapsulating the data to the class. Now,
Okay.
now that you have the data in your class, you can use it anywhere else, like inside diff or multiply.
Mm-hmm.
So encapsulating essentially has made it fixed for the class.
Okay.
So this let's say pattern of saving the data to the class, I mean saving the variables inside the class, attaching the variables to a class is called encapsulation.
Can you repeat again once? I
Yeah.
think yesterday you did encapsulation, I believe, right?
Yesterday, no, we didn't. Yesterday we did only overloading and uh, overriding and some other topic was there. What was it?
Okay, okay.
Okay. So, like here, when let's say if I call add method with 1 and 2, if I call add again, I'll have to pass new variables, right? Let's say 3 and 4.
Yes.
So, the data that I passed here is kind of wasted. It's not saved, right? So, but when you pass like some some data to the class, let's say you want to save the data, or you want to tie up the data to the class, then what you do is you write self dot a equal to something like this, like we did here, and you define a class variable instead of directly using the values like this we did here. So if you are using something like this, basically you are taking the advantage of the encapsulation feature that we have in the object-oriented programming design. So basically, encapsulation is very simple. It is using self to access the variables that you have passed to the class. So you are tying up the data, right? Once you pass the data here, you are using it again and again in add, diff, multiply, and division. So basically, the data got entangled to the class or
So
Mm-hmm.
encapsulated in
so
the
you're
data.
telling self-defining self means it will be accessed from through across the code. I mean, all the class and all the classes.
No, not all the classes. Only the class in which it is defined from all the methods inside the class.
Suppose you have four method
Yeah.
in the one class, same class.
Okay.
So all this it can be. I mean, this parameter A and B
Yeah.
class input. What do you call this?
You can call it an attribute or class variable.
Class variable.
Hmm.
So this can be accessible across the methods
Yeah. No.
wherever. You
Yeah.
need to define multiple time.
Exactly. Once you pass some variable, some value to those variables, it will be there throughout its lifetime. So, so this basic concept, this is already implemented in Python. And why did the creator of Python choose to implement is because if it is an object oriented programming language, there has to be some method, there has to be a way where we can add variable values and then store them in the class. So this self is created to serve that purpose of data encapsulation. Okay. So is it clear, like why we call it encapsulation?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that is about what we had to discuss today. So like we had discussed few things yesterday. You can continue with them in your assignments. And for data hiding, I have given you this example. You won't be there is not much that we can. It's not so big a topic to give an assignment on. But I'll send you these files for reference,
Okay.
and you can extend this function and override the volume inside the others, inside the other classes. I'll send you this as well. Create cube class and override volume method. Okay, and that will be an assignment for.
Still doubt, yeah, what is overriding and overloading. Uh, I don't know I can work on this or not, but I will try to complete this.
Did you go
So
through?
how do you write? I mean, yeah,
Have you gone through the class we had yesterday? The video.
it's a video file you sent or just
It is a video.
Python. I mean,
I have converted into a video and
no, I didn't got it.
okay, then that is where you missed the overloading. We did not discuss overloading today. Um, if you go through the overloading, the last class video, you'll able to understand overloading better. Once you understand,
Okay, so
yeah, try to go through it
now
today.
you're asking to work on that to create a. So where is the assignment? You are typing something.
Uh, I think I've closed it. Okay, this was yesterday's assignment. Yeah, this is where I was asking you to work on.
Okay, so let me understood this way. So you're asking to create one more class, which is nothing but a cube.
Yes.
What is the sound? Anybody go on mute, please?
Sorry.
Okay. What is it? Create cube. Okay. Now in this you are asking for override volume method.
Yeah.
Can you show me volume? Where is the method? Okay. This one. This belongs to
This is part of shape.
shape class.
Yeah.
So how do you override this? Nothing but you will mention class colon volume. Sorry, shape.
Yeah. Like this.
In the, okay, okay. Okay, now understood. What is the next you're writing? Can you please write?
And I mean override volume method. Like create volume method and provide your own logic for it.
Okay.
You need to create a cube class and then create a init method where it will take length and height, and then create a volume method which basically does not take anything apart from self and returns a volume of the cube, like length into breadth into height.
Here, what is this assignment? SC equal to shape. See,
This is,
before the print statement.
I'm
Object or
yeah,
shape class.
I'm converting the circle into a shape so that I can use the method
Oh,
necessary. I don't know whether this is correct or not. Okay, so we cannot do it like that. I thought we could convert it like that, but we know it's not. So typecasting, I'll have to check. I'll,
okay.
So, Chakri, I got it. I think I will take your help for this once.
yeah, yeah, sure. You can ping me.
And yesterday and today's fine. Can you combine and send me again?
Yeah, I will send you now.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's for today. If you have any,
Okay.
Yeah.
ping me.
Okay.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, fine.
Sure.
Sure.
Thank you. Bye.